Mic check 1 2. What to do? Welcome back to the Mic Check podcast. This is T Word, the People's Champion. My co-host Q. Today we're going to be talking about Alexander Usyk, unified heavyweight champion, and Tyson Fury, WBC heavyweight champion, and their fight being postponed, potentially canceled due to a nasty cut on Tyson Fury's face. But before we get into the video, Q, what's good?
Good, man. Disappointing news, obviously. Today would be 2 weeks from when that fight happened. So obviously for those that were looking forward to seeing that fight, not only that fight, but the undercard as well. That's the one thing that doesn't get talked about enough when these big, main events get canceled a lot of times or postponed in this situation. Those fighters have to figure out what they're going to do with their fights that were agreed to. Are they going to wait for a rescheduled date? Are they going to try to get those fights done on other cards? Or are they going to scrap those matchups altogether? I hope that they're able to get those rescheduled for a different card and we don't have to wait, because there were some really intriguing undercard fights that were supposed to be on that undercard that I really was looking forward to. But unfortunately, this is the nature of boxing. These kinds of things happen from time to time. It just happens to be that this was one of the bigger fights for this year that has happened.
For sure. This one is starting to feel like Virgil and Stanionis. You know a lot about that.
Yeah.
You know a lot about that one.
Yeah, well, for the people that don't know, I bought tickets to the first fight that was scheduled in Arlington. I believe that was summer of 22. And then I bought the rescheduled date for summer of 23. I'm sorry, it was winter of 22, summer of 23. And neither of those fights happened. And there was actually a postponement before that one that was on Stanionis because of his appendectomy. So actually 3 times they tried to reschedule that fight before ultimately they just scrapped it. But man, I hope this isn't that situation. I really don't, because there's a whole lot more at stake with this one than that fight for sure.
100% agree, but it's starting to feel snake bitten. And here's the current snake that's biting the fight right now. As you can see on your screen, nasty gash on Tyson Fury's face. Not to say that he did this on purpose. I mean, it's a contact sport. It's a collision sport. It's a hurt sport, and he got a boo-boo. The biggest thing with me is what's making me lose interest in seeing this fight altogether is the fact that I feel like Tyson Fury has done everything to not fight Alexander Usyk short of this. I'm not putting this as something like some type of ploy or tinfoil hat theory on why this happened now, but I just feel like he doesn't really have the interest in fighting Usyk for whatever reason, even though I feel like in many regards he could be the favorite just on sheer size alone. But I think he peaked against Deontay Wilder because there was so much hype around that fight that he just kind of poured everything into that, and now he just doesn't have the interest in boxing in that way. He just wants easy fights and a lot of money. And it's unfortunate because he's holding on to a belt that can't be part of the undisputed package because he won't fight the guy that has the rest of the belts. And then the WBC has shown that they will never strip a champion that has a lot of buzz around them no matter what. Anything Tyson Fury does, he greeted Deontay Wilder on the carpet, and people talked about that for a week. I can't even remember what fight they were at when that happened because that was a bigger news. So because of this circus around him, he's going to hold on to that belt as long as he chooses to, unless, he pops dirty or something. So I'm going to throw it to you. And what are your thoughts about the fact that, this seems like they keep not being able to get this thing on track? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think this is a combination of things, but the scenarios are not exactly the same. You brought up a fight that didn't happen with Virgil Ortiz and Montes Stanionis because of the variety of issues that they had there. Another fight that comes to mind for me is the Deontay Wilder Anthony Joshua fight. There were numerous occasions where those fights could have happened if one side was willing to sacrifice a little bit more to get it across the line, if the other side was willing to concede a little bit more to get it across the line. I think on both sides, that fight took too long to happen, and then they waited too long to try to make it happen. And once they finally had a deal agreed, there was one extra stepping stone that had to be made, and then Deontay Wilder lost to Joseph Parker, had his probably career worst performance. And obviously there's little to no interest in that fight at this time because of that. So that kind of, put the nail in the coffin, so to speak, on that fight happening. And ultimately, that fight was in its biggest swing, probably back as far as like 2018, 2019. That's probably around the time that would have been best to do it. That would have been an undisputed fight at this point. That was before Fury came back into the fold. All the belts would have been on the line at that point. But obviously, they could not agree on a deal. In this situation, while I see the point that you make about the fact that the fight has been snake bitten, this is the second rescheduling. It was supposed to have been December 23rd, but Fury had a more difficult fight with Francis Ngannou than he expected. Got knocked down in that fight. A lot of people thought he might have lost that fight. They rescheduled it for February 17th. The fight isn't happening February 17th now because of the cut that we just mentioned, which I will say, I'm not a Fury fan, but I will give him that. That's legitimate. It's the same eye that he was cut over against Otto Wallin, for folks that remember. That cut required, I think it was something like 65 stitches or something like that. It was a much larger cut than that, but obviously he's having issues with that same area of his face. I do think this fight still happens, but only for one reason, because I believe that this fight is going to get paid the amount of money that's too hard to turn away. I think that the fight being in Saudi Arabia, Turki Al-Sheikh having guaranteed basically both of these guys, excess of $40 million apiece. That's something you don't walk away from no matter how much money you have. So I think that the fight will still happen. I think it's going to be a very long time from now. And they've already announced that neither guy is going to have an interim fight. Usyk was rumored to potentially still fight on this card, but maybe against his mandatory challenger in Filip Hrgovic. But that fight's not going to happen because Filip hasn't been in camp. It's 2 weeks from now. He's probably not going to want to take that fight on 2 weeks' notice, or at least his trainers won't want him to. I'm sure as a fighter, he's willing to do it. But I think the fight still happens. But I think that this might change some people's mind on who is the favorite or who will win the fight. Because while I still thought that Usyk was going to win just based on styles, based on the fact that Fury doesn't like other guys that move better than him, I think the fact that Fury is now going to be coming off of a somewhat of an injury, Usyk is a guy that is a very intelligent fighter. That's the eye he's going to be going for. Just so people know, he's going to be going for that. He's going to pinpoint it, and he's going to be intentionally going towards that eye. And for people that need to remember, that's the same eye that on Anthony Joshua swelled up in both fights. So Usyk knows how to pinpoint punches to specific areas of someone else's body or face. He's going to do that in this fight. I think that this could maybe potentially swing things in Usyk's favor for other folks that might not have thought so before.
Yeah, just to explore that for a moment, I'm going to work backwards from what you were talking about and just start with the pendulum swinging in terms of maybe where the betting money goes. Like you, I believe that Usyk had all the tools to beat Fury. He has all the tools, he has them. The style, he's a very intelligent fighter, and he has athleticism too, which is an advantage over Fury because typically he's kind of more athletic and quirky than other people. And, you could call him Big Loma if you want to, because there are some similarities between Usyk and Loma, obviously. And I just believe that those things would give Fury trouble. Now, you bring into the fact that he's starting to be out of the ring a little longer. And I think by comparison, his body has had more wear and tear than Usyk's has. So I think that the longer you wait to get into a hard fight, the harder it becomes. So I would say that the betting money might start to swing the other way, even if most people already believe that Usyk probably will win the fight. Like you, I do believe that. Now, going back to when the fight happens, I mean, summer feels like it's too far at this point. Like, how long is it going to take to get this eye together if we know it's going to end up cut again anyway? What's going to stop it from blowing up in training?
Yeah, I think the rumor at this point is that they're probably looking to try to do it in June. You figure he's already had the stitches put in. Typically, that's about an 8-week full healing process. Then you got to go back into a camp. That's probably another 10 or 12 weeks. So basically, we're talking 4 months from now at the earliest. So late June, July sounds about right. The one thing that'll come up then, obviously, is the fact that that'll be in the middle of the hottest portion of the year. I don't know how many people are going to be wanting to go to Saudi Arabia in July. They do have an indoor stadium, so they're not going to have to consider that because some of their fights have been outdoors, but this will certainly be indoors, especially if they're going to do it in the middle of the summer.
For sure. And I mean, like I said, the summer feels a little far. just because like you're ready to get this fight going. But it's not that far when you consider, hey, if it's a really good fight and both men are willing and the money's still there, they could do it again later in the year. You know, they could get double dip this year. So if we could get it in June, that leaves the potential for a rematch if it's a good enough matchup or just in general. So definitely interested to see how the rest of it is going to play out. Definitely going to be paying attention. This is the most sizzling topic in heavyweight boxing. So hopefully you all out there have an opinion as well. And we would love to get your comments down in the comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. And this has been T, that's Q. This is the Mic Check Podcast. And until the next time, we are out. Peace.